Okay, it is Wednesday, April 3rd, 2019. It is 8:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, and I am Professor Richard Wright, and welcome to J115, Introduction to Corrections, and I will be here with you for the next 11 weeks, providing you with information and details to help you to be able to navigate this course. One of the things that is going to be very critical is number one, the course project, which I'm going to go into detail. I'm going to provide you all the details, all the requirements from A to Z. I'm going to tell you how to start out correctly, because if you start out wrong, you're going to finish wrong. And then I am going to cover the expectations for this course, covering in detail the requirements that you have for this class. And so then I'm going to, at the end, give you a little bit about myself that you need to know about, so you'll understand where I'm coming from. I am here to be of service to you. I encourage you to reach out to me and pay close attention to the things that I'm going to say today. I do encourage you to recognize that I'm recording every lecture, and that you can always refer back, because I will be emailing a copy of the lecture to each of you after this lecture is over. Today is going to be a little longer. Generally, I run an hour and a half, sometimes a little bit over that for the first week. And the reason is because primarily I'm covering details about how to succeed for the entire quarter. So with that being said, let me delve right into sharing with you my screen. And here it is. The first thing that you can see, as I move this out of the way, is the instructor information. You see my name, you see my phone number, and you see my face there. You've seen me already if you've looked in the student lounge and saw my family there, and you know some things about me. Anyway, I want to put this statement out to you up front. Students can feel free to call me, text me, or email me any hour of the day except the 25th hour of the day. Now, you should follow and understand what that means. So when you do text me, please make sure that you provide your course name and your name, because when I get a text, I will not know the number and I can't answer your questions. I answer pretty quickly. Sometimes when students text me, I will call them if I'm able to call them. The key thing is that usually students text me when there's something urgent that they need to know right away. Emailing me is good too. However, if there is a pressing issue or you're near the deadline of your assignment, texting me or calling me is the best way. And I have had students that call me very late at night and early in the morning and in the afternoon. And sometimes I get back to them within the minutes. But be sure that you be aware of this. No other professor offers this except me. You will find that I'm a hands-on when it comes to my students. I love every one of my students. I love helping you. Many of you I never met face-to-face, but I want to be able to help you into success. And my goal is student success for each and every student. I want to say up front that the rubrics are very, very important in your grades. I use the rubrics as a basis for determining whether or not you satisfied the requirements of the assignment. the rubrics coincide with the module where the assignment details are given. So you need to look at both of them. But the rubrics is how I score, and I will tell you up front that it is so important to make sure that you become familiar with the rubrics. I did email you the rubrics. If I did not, then the rubrics are in each and every assignment. So I don't think I did, now that I think about it, but if I did, you have them. At any rate, they're in each and every assignment. I'll show you as we navigate this system. APA is very, very important, and APA pretty much settles with some other details, but the most important details that concern me with this is making sure that you have cited the body of your paper and references at the end. You also have a cover page, and it's Roman 12 point. That's the basic requirement. There are some others, but you should be aware that students oftentimes lose points for not satisfying the APA requirement. It is very important that you satisfy APA. Today we're going to look at my academic integrity announcement, which is located on the left side of this page. And I'm going to take a few minutes and I'm going to share this video with you that you should become familiar with to help you understand one of the reasons why APA is important. It does relate to academic integrity. And then critical thinking. Critical thinking, you'll discover, is one of our transferable skills that we'll be talking about when I get to the syllabus. And it basically saying that when we do your papers, we don't want you just copying and pasting material. We want you also to analyze it, break it down, own it, discuss it in your papers. As I said, providing resources to support yourself. The Library and Learning Center resources are very, very helpful. I provide information throughout this page, and I do recommend that you utilize the Resources tab here at the top, which we'll share in a little bit. So all of these issues are very important to your assignments: rubrics, APA, and critical thinking. There is a process called Grammarly, where you run your papers through Grammarly. You'll each have a Grammarly account that will help you in being able to do that. Matter of fact, while I'm here, let me just go take a look at the Resources tab, which you see right here where my mouse is. And when you open it up, you'll see, first of all, the academic integrity video that I'm going to be sharing with you right here. And then it tells you about library resources. These are some resources that can help you: articles, books, videos that can help you research for your papers. The Library and Learning Center has put together a great amount. And these are credible resources. Credible. Never use Wikipedia. I'm saying this up front. Never use Wikipedia. It is not a reliable source, and many students should be aware of that. And then here's the APA guide here, APA academic writer. Then there's Grammarly, as I was talking about, to checking spelling and plagiarism. Make sure you check the box for plagiarism when you run your papers through Grammarly. I have to do that, and so would you, to make sure. And it's based on word count, and it can almost tell me where you get your information from. And so you'll see when we talk about academic integrity how important this is. And then Noodle Tools help you to, and tells you how to set that up, and gives your username and then your password. And it helps you to format your papers, and it helps you to deal with the cover page. And then the writing guide from discussion posts to how to do a PowerPoint to researching papers. And so all of this information is here. Here are the critical skills that I will be discussing in a little bit. And then these are, this is our library and Learning Center, Dennis Johnson. This is the person that would service you guys in the criminal justice program and in the paralegal program. So that's who you would reach out to, okay? And we have student tutors that can help you as well. So anyway, that's the resources tab. So now let's go back. And so I tell you under the additional course information that you're required to conduct research for all papers. That means that the sole source of your papers, and do not rely heavily on your textbook. You will lose 2 points if that's your sole source. Researching is very, very, very important, and it also increases your ability to be able to understand the material and to learn from it. So it is very important. I've already talked about this section already, APA with references. Also, I want to remind you that you'll lose a point if you don't provide a cover sheet for all written assignments. All written assignments. Now, we're not talking about discussion posts, obviously, but we're talking about written assignments and dealing with your course project. And then these are various articles and resources that the Library and Learning Center has put together with guides, a writing guide, librarian questions, a success guide to help you, dealing with peer, mentor, and tutoring. Now, be aware that we have some information about how the tutor system works. Now, be aware that we primarily use student tutors who are people that may be in classes even with you. Some of them are in some of these classes that I'm teaching. And what they do is that they are able to help you deal with your issues. Now, tutoring is not just for students who are having trouble. Tutoring is also beneficial to help you to perform better and to obtain better grades. So I have links in here that you can click on about how to do that. Then I have some articles that are very beneficial to help you. And you can use these articles like Going Beyond the Textbook for criminal justice students, Analytical Tips. This is when you get to dealing with critical thinking. The Importance of Information Literacy, which is one of our transferable skills. And then how referencing for criminal justice students. You have sometimes cases that you cite, and it's important that you cite them properly. The annotated bibliography aspect is not as important. And then there is an article, a video relating to critical thinking. It's not a long video, and you could copy and paste this video onto your browser at the top, and then you can be able to see this, and it will help you to understand critical thinking. Finally, in this box, rubrics, and I say that they are located in each weekly written assignment and course projects. So you'll be able to see those each and every week. And then discussion posts. This is one rubric that we use for all discussions. And essentially you'll discover that we want your discussion posts to address the issues that are presented in each week. You're going to discover that your discussion posts are due on last night was the week 1 discussion posts for initial posts that are due, and then we're going to discover that Saturday at 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time that you will see that those are due. So you are going to find yourself in the situation where there is. So as I go through this lecture, I'm going to make sure I cover each and every one of you, and we're going to be here at least until 10 o'clock, close to that. So so focus in and pay close attention to everything that I am saying. Okay, so now with the discussion posts. Now the section that I want to cover is the live classroom lecture session. Notice, as those of you who are here already know this link. This link is found in several places. You can even look over while at my mouse. If I move it to the left page of the page on the home page, you'll see it right there. You're going to see it in the course calendar. You're also going to see it in all of my. You're going to see it in my announcements and as well. So this is the one place that I am for every class I do. But remember, your time is according to what's in the calendar. If you come early or if you come late, you might miss it. Now, if you're going to see the recording, you're not going to use this. You're going to use what I submit to you in an email, and recordings under here, there'll be a link. I convert my lectures to YouTube so that students will be able to use them, even if there are some issues with WebEx. As you receive the email talking about WebEx recordings may have problems, you may not be able to access them over the weekend. That doesn't apply to my class because all of my lectures will have been completed and converted in YouTube, so you can still access them any time of the day or hour. So today is our open house. It'll go roughly until 10 or a little after that. And starting next week, the 10th, we will have a live lecture. And I say beginning March 10th. Let me make that correction. Actually, it is not beginning March 10th. It is actually April 10th. So let me fix that right here. Give me 1 minute. Go ahead and go back and fix that. April 10th. Okay, obviously that's an error because you weren't even in this course that time. So it is beginning April 10th, 2019, which is a week from today. So our lectures will take place, with the exception of the open house, on even weeks. So weeks 2, week 4, week 6, week 8, and week 10 at 8:30, and they will be an hour long or less, Most time they're less, but they're at least very close to an hour or so. All right, so now let's go to the left side. So now I'm going to take a few minutes, and I am going to take off my headphones. And the reason I'm going to do that is so that I can share this video with you and you can hear it. Because if I leave on my headphones, you are not going to be able to hear it. So let me move this out of the way here. Whoops. Let me move it over. Let me take it and grab it. No, that's not the way. It's away. Okay. Okay, let me. Oh, I don't want to do that. Let's close it. Close that. Cancel. Okay, let me see what the world. I don't know what that is. That. Okay, let's. Okay, let me get rid of that new tab. Okay. All right, let's go back to. Okay, let's make that bigger. Okay, now let me open up another tab. Okay, this is what I wanted to do. Yeah. So let me take off. And you can pay attention to this. It's about 4 minutes.
What is academic integrity? Academic integrity is making decisions in your academic life that are based on honesty, trust, fairness, responsibility, and respect. This means being honest in the work you do, while respecting the work that others do. So what is cheating? Cheating means distributing or receiving answers or information by any means other than those expressly permitted by an assignment's requirements or an instructor. Some examples of cheating include asking fellow students for answers or copying answers during a test, using notes, devices, or materials during a test that your instructor has not approved, purchasing papers from websites or other sources, copying your classmate's work, assisting a classmate in misconduct, and other violations as noted in the academic integrity policy that can be found in all course syllabi. Always ask your professor if it's okay to use notes during a test or to work together with classmates on an assignment or quiz. Now let's talk about plagiarism. Plagiarism means using another individual's work without giving them credit or taking another person's work and claiming it as your work. Some examples of plagiarism are turning in an assignment that someone else wrote, copying words or ideas from someone else. This can be a library resource, course textbook, internet resource, or other material without giving the original creator credit, failing to put quoted works in quotation marks, or using someone else's ideas in your essays, but changing a few of the words to make it sound like the words are your own. Plagiarism is not just about written words and ideas. It's possible to plagiarize images, graphs, coding, or video as well. So how can you avoid plagiarism? Cite your sources, both in the body of your paper as in-text citations and on your references page. Whenever you want to use words, images, media, or ideas that were created by another person, you should cite that person appropriately as the source of that information.
But how does academic integrity relate to the work world? Isn't it just a college thing?
No. Integrity in the workplace starts with good practices and skills built while you are a student. Would you turn in a project document to your manager as your own when someone else wrote it? Not if you want to keep your job. Individuals can be reprimanded or even fired from their job for plagiarism. Following academic integrity guidelines while you are in school builds those skills and ethical practices that carry through to the workforce.
Okay, I understand how they're connected, but what do I do if I need more help?
If you have questions on the academic integrity policy, consult your course syllabus, talk with your instructor or dean, and if you need assistance with APA citation style or how to avoid plagiarism, contact the Rasmussen library team through our live chat or schedule a research appointment on our library website or through the resources tab of your course. If you would like APA tutoring, schedule an appointment with one of our peer tutors on the course resources tab.
Okay, but tell her, okay, all right, thanks. All right, bye-bye. Okay, so I'm back. Let me put on my headset here. Give me a second here while I plug this back up. Oh, come on, this thing is, there we go. Okay. Let me cancel this test. Okay, you should be hearing me now. Yeah, I see the little thing going on. So anyway, that was the academic integrity video. And you need to pay close attention to that. Of course, though, you can always go back and look at it yourself. As I said, you'll find it under the Resources tab, as well as you will find it on the course homepage with my announcement that will remain the whole quarter, so you can copy and paste it. And then there are some other announcements, like helpful resources. So let me make that smaller. Okay, and then dealing with APA again, there is, let me move this up. Let me move this out of the way. Okay, put it back in the corner. There we go. And dealing with the APA and the guide to APA, there is a guide right here, the same one that you saw under the Resources tab. My goal, again, is to provide the resources that they put together to help. And then this is about the library, the writing process that explains using the writing guide, running your papers through Grammarly, as I said, using the writing lab. Now, remember, if you use the writing lab, which is offered to help you, Brain Fuse, what happens in a situation there is that there is a, I think it's 48-hour turnaround. So if you turn it in and it's late, you're not going to get points because you turned it in there off. That's not going to be considered as an extenuating circumstance, as you'll hear me discuss in a few minutes. So the point of the matter is that so that's what that is here. And then you're going to, as it says here, when you get it back from the writing lab, then you can submit your final paper. Students sometimes send me papers, and then they ask me, can I rewrite it? I try not to do that. And the reason why is because I have so many students, and it's a lot of work as it is. My goal is to get your written assignments graded by the end of the week in which they are due. So your written assignments, as you know, or will learn, are due every Sunday. And since they're due every Sunday, then then I will try to get them graded by the end of the week. So, and that's the point. That's very, 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 very important. Okay. Trying to get this back out here. Okay, I don't know why that's not showing there. Okay, so then you should make sure that you get those done. So anyway, here's your announcement here that you saw at the beginning. Pay attention to this very carefully, especially those things that are highlighted, which tells you what quarter this is. There's a little bit about me. But each of these little highlighted points, the announcements, student lounge, course mail, syllabus, pay close attention to these and take time to read these. These are very important bullet points that will help you in terms of dealing with the course. If you have any questions about any of these bullet points, feel free to reach out to me and I'll help you to understand them. You will find that the syllabus, which we're going to talk about, covers academic integrity, the attendance policy, and late assignment submission stuff. And then the course calendar, which we're going to go over, is the place where you'll find your dates. I have students oftentimes that say, when is assignment due? I don't know when it is. I said it's on the course calendar. It's in the announcements as well. And the whole quarter is already there, and you can print that calendar up. And then there's a general course question section that you can go to. Now, when you go to that general course section, you'll be able to find the information that will allow you to reach out and get the answers to your questions that are general. And anyone can answer those questions. Now, if you have some individual personal questions, don't put them in there because everybody's going to see them. Send those to me in an email or text me or even call me. The Resources tab, we already are familiar with. The Report tab, this is how you get your grade book. And you should be able to see that. Okay, now let me bring that, let me bring it out. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Okay, so this is what I was trying to get out here. So you'll see it says here, course messages, course home. Well, the second one is my grades. That's for you, okay? So you want to make sure that you become familiar with those tabs. And then your calendar, and then your resources, and then, as I say, your report. Then this is some more information about some more links that are beneficial and that can help you, okay? Now, this is a reminder in here that what I already shared with you, that our live lectures are every other Wednesday from 8:30 to 9:30, beginning next week. Now, students who looked at that and didn't pay attention to the week 1 announcement will say, oh, I thought we didn't start till next week. Today is a week 1, but it's an open house, and it's longer than 9:30. And then it tells you what we do. There that link is, again, I told you about to get to the classroom, all right? And then notice, look at the Lessons tab and the Getting Started folder that helps you. And then I recommend printing out the syllabus. And then if you have technical problems, refer to PSC, or Personal Support Center. This is their phone number, and it's here, and it's on every page at the bottom. There it is right there. No matter what page you're on in the Blackboard LMS, you will find this information, and you can reach out to them. They are 24/7, holidays included. There's always somebody there who can help you, okay? So now, each week, you will get an announcement. Let me decrease that one and increase this one. So this is your weekly announcement for week 1. And it tells you, number 1, what the topic of, correction systems and its history. And it says that you're to read chapter 1 or section 1 of the text. And you should each have access to your text now. It's in the course. And then look at the activities: an introduction to the correction system and a historical perspective. I'm just going to go over that a little bit, but when I do the lectures in detail, I will use that during my lecture time as well. Once again, I remind you when the lectures take place. Remember, I told you you'll find stuff more than one place. This is the link that I was telling you about for this classroom where we are now. This is discussion assignment, justification, or punishment. I already gave you the rules and parameters for discussion posts, so I'm not going to go over that. I will say this while I'm talking about discussion posts, that discussion posts are not accepted, or you won't receive any grades if you submit an initial post after 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time, okay, on Saturday. So if you submitted Sunday as your initial post, you're not going to get any points, no matter how good it is. Now, I will say this, one of the things that I am going to tell you is that I will allow you to submit your initial post by Saturday and your reply post by Saturday, but of course you're going to lose points for the late submission because it was due Tuesday for your initial post. Okay, you're going to lose 1 point for each day that it's late. And then your reply post, if I'm saying you've submitted just your initial post by Saturday, which again it's late, and you submit your reply post by Sunday, which is technically after the discussion forum is ended, I make a rule to my students that I allow you to do so, but you will lose 1 point for that. So, and the reason why we do that is the school policy. It's in the syllabus. So when I get to the syllabus, I won't have to slow down at that point, because it is one of the bases that says very clearly that the form is over. And put it to you this way: if you were in class, physically in class this week, and you came next week and you missed this week, we wouldn't go over everything that we talked about. In other words, the area of topics of discussion. We'll be on a new discussion for that particular week. And so that's the same way this work. We'll be moving on to Module 2 and a new discussion assignment. So we'll be done with that. So it doesn't serve a purpose for you to submit a written assignment after we have completed the week in terms of doing that. So it's very, very, very important that you understand that about discussion posts. And finally, for this week, you have a written assignment, elements of the correctional system, and you have a quiz. Now, what I have recommended to students in the past, and I'll say this again, is that the quiz should be taken at the end of the week. Now, it's up to you. You can do it whenever. It's a time quiz. And students don't do too well when they try to do it right off the bat. Some students say, oh, yeah, it's not going to be that difficult. I can do that. I recommend that you've read the materials. As you know, I've sent you the PowerPoints that coincide with this week. And each week I will send you the PowerPoints. We don't use those in the lectures, but I give them to you to help you to study for the quizzes, and also to help you to be clear on what the chapter is all about. It kind of gives you an outline format. And then today, it says you will be completing a course project, which I said. Today, there's no written assignment for it, even if you saw it on the calendar. But what it is today is I'm going to go over the course project, and I've done this every quarter, and every quarter I do it. I cannot tell you how many comments I get from students to ask me questions about the course project. It's going to be very, very comprehensive. It's going to go everything from A to Z, and I do it in baby steps to make sure that you understand. That's why this week's session is longer, because I take the time to break it down. So once we move from this point, when we get to weeks 2, 4, and 10, we're going to be moving faster over the material that's for that week. So we're going to discuss the course project in the introduction, okay? So all assignments are due by Sunday, 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. As I said, your assignments are due Sunday by 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. Sunday is the 7th of April. I will have your assignments and planning on having your assignments graded for that week by Thursday the 12th. Thursday the 12th by 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. That includes discussion posts and everything included. So I have quite a bit of work that's done. So the point of the matter is so as soon as the deadline ends, and here's something else you should be aware. If you have not turned in your assignment by Sunday at 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time, even if we have worked something out to give you a longer period based on extenuating circumstances, I'm still going to put a 0 in the grade book, which means that I have to do that so that, number one, it lets you know. Number two, it also provides details to the academic people, the advisors and staff, so that they can realize this student hasn't turned in assignments timely. And your grade point average can be adversely affected by missing weekly assignments. Now, I can always go back after you submit them, allowing for, if there is no extenuating circumstance, the loss of points for lateness that we'll be discussing the late policy in just a few minutes. It's on the syllabus. So the key thing is be aware, because the students is I like to get my assignments graded like as soon as I submit them. It's not gonna. Sometimes it will happen. Sometimes it won't. But the key thing is that you really may not have them until that Saturday before that next week's assignments are due. And that's how it goes through all the way through until we get to the last week. And I won't deal with that now because we're a long ways away from that, but we go pretty fast. And then this is also a reminder in here in the blue about what's taking place right now. And you see the link again. Now, this little statement, let's start strong and finish strong, is in every announcement for each week that I put in there. Not every announcement, but the weekly announcement covering what's due for that week. You'll learn that about my motto, adversity is the springboard to success. You're going to learn about that at the end, why I say that, what it's all about, what it means to me, and why I'm known as Professor Empathetic, because of the way I work with my students. And because of what I've been through in life, I appreciate life happens to people along the way, and understanding that you're going to run across circumstances that will create problems, and so we recognize that. At least I do as a professor with my students. So now let's go to the course calendar. Of course, though, the course calendar, you can access it right here, and I can click on it right here, and you'll see the course calendar pop up. And this is the one for constitutional law, because I got that checked. But let me go back and check the box for this one, and then it'll populate. Now you see it. Now you see it there, and so you can see what's in the course calendar. Starting in April, this is your reading assignment. And when you see these little lines, this is, oh, Professor, it's not that much. Yes, it is. You click on it, and it tells you what the reading assignment is. Okay? And then this tells you your initial post and when it is due. But then it tells you about the open house, and it tells you, again, there's the link right there, and it tells you at least last an hour, and actually an hour and a half for today. And then your initial post, your reply post. And then Sunday, it tells you your written assignments. Now notice here that it'll tell you, explains it, but your rubric is what's going to help you as well. All right, so this is, again, your written assignment. This is the quiz. That is a time quiz. And then these down here tell you which are the due dates for your written assignment. Now, you'll see something in here about a course project introduction. Now, remember, watch what's going to happen when I open this. See Module 1 for details. It is not a written assignment. So as soon as I get somebody that calls me and says, I don't see a written assignment for this, it is not a written assignment. It's just a reminder that you should be aware of the course project, because there is going to be an assignment in week 2. All right? And so each week we'll go over this. So I'm going to reserve this for next week, because this is week 2 right here. But you can take your whole calendar and you can copy it. This is April. This is May. And then click it on again, and it is June. And you see that the course ends on Friday the 14th. That's when the course completely ends. Not that Sunday the 16th, but the 14th. And then, so when we get to that particular time, you'll be aware of that. So don't come and tell me, says, oh, Professor, every other assignment was due on Sunday except the discussion post. So I thought that the last week. No. When you'll get notice. It'll be in the announcements. You'll hear me talking about it during our final lecture 2, which will be week 10 as well. And so that's the course calendar. All right. So now let's go out of that and let's to the week 1 module. Well, no, before we do that, I want to go to the syllabus. Let's do the syllabus. Okay, so in the syllabus, you see the course name, my phone number, email. Remember, you're going to use, for this course, try to keep your emails in the course mail. Where it says course messages, you can compose and send messages to me. You can send it to my mail outside, as you also have what we call S-mail or student mail, but that is something that you want to try to not do as much as possible. You want to try to use the course mail. And then this reminds you of my notes that I already told you about APA and about research. And this explains the course. It tells the textbook. It tells the course requirements. And it tells you the things that you should do. Timeliness. Participate in the discussion post. And check the course announcements and messages. It says at least 3 times a week. I would be checking it more than that. Now, with discussion posts, I've kind of talked about that. The only other thing I'm going to say is this, is that discussion posts need to be content, not just a brief statement, not just one word, one sentence. It should be detailed to demonstrate that you've provided some details and you've given some thought to it. So you can take time to read that as well, but I've already kind of discussed it. The documentation style, remember we already talked about APA. Established by the American Psychological Association, it is used as a requirement in this course. And then I told you about the library resources that can help you if you have some problems with that. I already told you when discussion posts are due, so I'm going to go through that. Now, your course will consist of readings, which I've shown you in the calendar, and announcement. Discussion posts, which we've gone over. Written assignments, quizzes. There'll be 5 quizzes throughout the quarter, 10 multiple choice questions. Again, they are timed. And then your course project. Now, for the project, you'll select one of the 4 areas of corrections. Don't worry about what those are. I will tell you what those are, and you will be able to take care of that and understand that, so don't worry about that. And interview a staff member of an agency. This is going to be broken down. Remember this, you're going to learn that your course project consists of weeks 2, weeks 4, week 7, and then the final is due week 9. You'll see that as I'll go over that in a few minutes. The final exam is 50 multiple choice questions, and it's comprehensive. When it says it is comprehensive, it means that it covers all the material from week 1 through week 11. That is why I encourage you to use your PowerPoints. Your PowerPoints is a quick way to study the chapter itself. So I encourage you to utilize that, and your final exam will come up at the end of the course. Then this is a reminder of the same thing that's at the top about research and so forth. Now, this is how the course breaks down and the weight and percentages. So for discussions, there are 11 weeks. You get 220 points. So what does that mean? That means you get 20 points for each week, 10 for initial post, 10 for reply post, which is a pretty, look at the percentage of your grade. It's a pretty high percentage. So you need to participate in discussion posts. Your written assignments are 305, which is the highest. Almost 40% of your grade is based on your written assignments. Now, I didn't say course project. Your course project is 165 points, or 21.2%, but don't relax because it's a smaller percentage. because it's a difference in an A or B, a B or C, a C or a D, or passing and failing. It's important that you follow the course project as well. Again, we'll be breaking that down for you this week. Your quizzes, I already told you, you get 10 points. There are 5 quizzes, which is 6.4%, but you still want to get those in. Then your final exam is 40 points. And you say, oh, the final exam is a small percentage. Don't get deceived by that. Don't get deceived by that. Many have had that issue. And you could either end up back in this course again if you fail it, or either you could end up getting a lower grade, and you don't want to do that. If it's me, I want to get as much information to learn, which will result in a higher grade. Now, I'm going to make this announcement right now. You see this? My mouse is at A all the way down to B minus. Well, it's in between there, from 100% to 80%. Do not call me, text me, email me, or ask me, how do I get a C plus or 79% and below? Don't ask me that question, because I'm not going to answer it for you, because I don't produce C students. I don't encourage students to be C students. I help students to become A and B students. I'm helping students to get on the honor roll. I'm not going to, as some of you know, because there are a few people that have been here before and had some issues, various reasons why they're back. But the point of the matter is this: I'm tough, firm, but I'm fair. I'm very fair, and that I will do everything I can within the rules of the school to help you to succeed. So I'm a guide to help you get to A and B, but you got to do the work. You already heard about the academic integrity issues that could come about, okay? I'm not going to talk about this because this is something that I do already. But I am going to stop and talk about the transferable skills. We have identified that there are some skills that employers are looking for in terms of employees that they want to see employees come out with. And they are as follows. And they're transferable to employment. Communication. You must possess good written and oral communication. You're going to discover that your project and your written assignments allow you to exercise your written communication. You're going to realize that your oral communication is going to be exercised in your interviews during the times you do your course projects. You're going to discover that it is so important that you be able to do this. Employers, one of the #1 things, and you're going to hear when you listen to videos and they start talking about hiring probation officers, parole officers, and also dealing with other criminal justice professionals. But in this course, correction officers, probation officers, parole officers, you're going to hear communication as something that's critical that employers are looking for. Critical thinking, I've already discussed that, but that's one of our transferable skills that's important. Digital fluency. You have to be able to navigate and use digital systems, various ones. Now, your professor is, I'll be 69 a month from today, and what you should be aware of is this, is that when I came out of law school in 1978, 41 years ago, there was no such thing as digital. None of that. We didn't have online classes. We didn't use computers or laptops. We didn't even have these things here, cell phones. Now everybody has them, and your cell phone is not just used for calling. It's used for texting. I have my email on here. I have all kinds of apps that I use. I actually have one app in here that's called Bookshelf, and when I open up my bookshelf, it allows me to see my my books, that I use. Right here, if you can see that right there, that is the corrections book. And I have it right here, and I can see it on my computer. I don't have to carry all those books around like I used to. The point of the matter is that digital fluency is so important. Being able to use processes like Excel spreadsheets, being able to use Word, using the various modes or modems, not modems, rather, what do they call those things? Browsers. That's it. Thank you. You know, Firefox, which is one we use a lot of times in this particular format. But there's also out there Internet Explorer, which we hardly ever use. You know, and so Chrome is another, and there's some others. But anyway, you must be able to do that. Diversity and teamwork. You're going to work together with people from various backgrounds, with various ethnic groups, various sexual persuasions. You're going to deal with individuals who are LGBT. You're going to deal with individuals who are not LGBT. You're going to deal with people who have different religious beliefs. You're going to deal with people who speak different languages. But recognizing that we appreciate that among ourselves. There are many of you in this course, in this class, who are from different backgrounds, different cultures, different ethnic groups, different races, and so forth. We respect each person. We don't think there's one any better than the other. To each his own is due to dignity and respect toward each other. Demonstrate that in terms of your discussion forums. Don't shoot somebody down. Just because you disagree with them, you don't shoot them down. You can explain why you disagree, and people should respect you, okay? Just like there are people who have different political parties. People have different political figures that they like, and some they don't like. This diverse community, and we are entitled to be able to be free and feel that we will not be ostracized in any shape, form, or fashion, or disrespected. And so diversity is important. In criminal justice especially, you're going to deal with people from backgrounds different from yourself. If you're in corrections, you're going to deal with a large number of African Americans. That's just the way it is. Hispanics. And, you know, so the point of the matter is, you're going to, and if you're Caucasian, you're going to have to deal with those situations. You're going to have to respect them. I always tell my law enforcement people, just remember, just because somebody shot and killed a police officer, you don't have the right to beat anything out of them. And please, whatever you do, people, do not refer to these people in negative terms, cuss words, and name calling and all of that. We have to be professional in how we do our jobs. Teamwork. You're going to be working with people from various aspects. You know, when you're in criminal justice, you're going to work with forensic people. You're going to work with law enforcement people, corrections people. We've already had some discussion about this in our post about dealing with law enforcement, dealing with the court system, and the corrections working hand in hand, and each one working together. It's teamwork. It's teamwork. And you're going to find yourself doing teamwork in this course, dealing with not your course project, because it's not a course team project. It's an individual project that you're going to do, but you're going to deal with that specifically with your discussion forums as you share with each other in terms of that. Oh, back to the discussions. I do encourage you to reply to as many posts as possible. You won't get extra points, but it does make the discussion forum go more smoothly and make it more interesting. Ethics and professional responsibility. Ethics is the beginning and the end. What did we just talk about? Academic integrity. I always say if you're an unethical student, you're going to probably be an unethical professional. If you're an unethical professional, it's going to end up landing you sometimes in a place where you don't want to be. For example, behind bars. You can lose your jobs. And so those kinds of things. So you want to operate ethically. I teach and have taught ethics and criminal justice when we had it. I taught medical law and ethics. I taught business ethics. Ethics is so important. I am also a pastor, and I try to teach people to operate ethically. Ethically. Very, 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 very important. Do the right thing. Even don't try to take shortcuts. Do the right thing. Follow the processes. Respect the professional responsibility, the canons and codes and the policies of who you're working for and your profession. Be able, because you're going to be held to those standards as well. So we try to get you to be professional in terms of that. When you do your interviews, we tell you in there to remember when you go, don't go in flip-flops, jeans, shorts, and all of that stuff. Go dressed as if you're actually going to interview for a position or something like that. The bottom line is professional. Present yourself as a professional. Information literacy, being able to research and find information that's credible. Again, I caution you, do not use Wikipedia ever, because it is not a good source. And you're going to have to be able to research and find things. And again, there's an article that I have in here that helps you with information literacy. I'm going to skip the attendance policy, and then I'm going to just simply say here, I've already talked about the discussion post-issue. Be aware that your assignments, as I said, when they are due, written assignments are due on Sundays, 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. Each day that they are late, you, by the submission policy of the college, says I should take 10 points or 10% of the grade away. So each week, if you're 3 or 4 days late, you can end up going from 100 to 70, and that's not good. And you should be aware that after you get, it says past the 7th day, that you will fail. Well, I got news for you. You'll actually fail by the 6th day, because you're getting into the 60s. And, you know, so the point of the matter is that you don't want to be placed in that position. I will say this, that there is a statement in here that says instructors may waive the late penalty in extenuating circumstances. So that's up, and it's determined by the faculty. So I am the one, not your dean, not your advisor. And if you go to them, they'll say, we're going to send you back to your instructor. It is yours truly. I don't know if you don't let me know. And I will determine whether it's extenuating or not. Please, whatever you do, don't tell me somebody died and you're going to send me a copy of the obituary. I don't want to see the obituary. I don't want a note from the doctor. I don't want your military orders, which, by the way, if you are in the military and you are deployed, I'm going to believe you. And, you know, somebody said, why you tell them that? They can make that up. I said, trust me, it is problematic if you do, because you're working yourself into an unethical situation, and it's going to catch up with you. The reason why there are criminals is because they got caught operating unethically and violating the law. Famous last words. I didn't think I was going to get caught. Famous last words. Unethical, I thought I could get away with it. I thought I could take somebody else's work and use it. I thought I could change a few words around. You heard the video. You can't do that, because it's going to catch up with you. And we have systems that allow us to discover those kinds of things. Don't get so happy if you seem to fall through the cracks and pass through without getting caught the first time. Somewhere along the line, it's going to come back and it's going to get you. So don't spend time doing that. So anyway, I'm very liberal with it. I'm very fair, and I just determine extenuating circumstances on a case-by-case basis. And some of you who are in here that have been with me before or have had me for other classes and are in here understand where I'm coming from. I am very, very flexible when it comes to it. Okay, but don't try to play up on my sympathy or empathy. Incomplete grade policy, I don't talk about that. That's something you read for yourself. The academic integrity policy, you read that for yourself as well. But we kind of gave you a video to talk about that. And that is what I want to say about the syllabus. It's 9:35 and it says we have 25 minutes. I know we're going to go beyond that, but now let me go into week 1. And one of the reasons we're going to go beyond is because I'm going to take a few minutes to go over the course project. Now, here's your first written assignment, and it tells you what you need to do. And it tells you what the length of the paper should be and everything. Now, listen to me. If you click on this assignment, that's how you do it when you get ready to do it, it's going to show you two things. One at the left is going to be the due date. There it is. And it's going to tell you how many possible points. But it also tells you there's a rubric attached that I use. And here is the rubric for this written assignment, possible 25 points. The quality, content, and accuracy of information, 15%, 15 points or 60% of your grade, which is the biggest part, deals with satisfying these issues. These issues, the 4 components of corrections: probation, parole, jail, and prison. By the time this session is over, you will have heard me talk about parole, probation, jail, and prison are the components of corrections. Those are the 4. And then you're to follow what it says here. Then you're to make sure that it meets the 2-page requirement. Make sure that you've satisfied the APA requirements. See what I told you about Wikipedia? There it is, right there again. So that's what you do for this one, all right? And so then we leave that. And then we go back to the other written assignment, which is your discussion post, which we already talked about, and then your quiz. I already told you it is timed 10 minutes, so it's 1 minute per question. And then I already told you the parameters. Again, I'm not going to click on the quiz, but I'm going to click on the due date. And it tells you the same thing. It's due 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time on the 7th for that week. Okay? All right. I didn't put due dates in here for discussion posts because we already know when that is as well. It's standard. Tuesdays, initial post, 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time, and reply post Saturday, 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. So now let's go back to the lesson tab. Now, I'm going to go over this section pretty quickly till I get to the project. And this describes what is done, and it gives you a summary about what the criminal justice system about. I'm going to do the introduction to the course project in just a minute. Your discussion, quiz. It also tells you, remind you about tutoring. I already talked to you about that, and then, your live classroom that's taking place today. All right. Now, I'm not going to talk about the introduction. You're going to read that over yourself. And then there's a historical perspective, which there is a video that you can take a look at, and I'm just going to show you what it's like, but you can look at it yourself. And then it'll tell you about the history of corrections, and all you have to do is click on each of these. Okay, this one takes you all the way and tells you what happened in 1780. This is, click on it, and you see it changes. And you do that all the way through and go through. Again, I will not go through each of these because of the fact I want to concentrate on the, and it takes you all the way up to now, 20th century. So you can go over that yourself, okay? And that's the historical perspective. Okay, now let's go back and so now here we are, good people. Pay close attention to what I'm about to do. I'm going over the course project. I'm going to explain to you, and I'm going to read some of this stuff, word from word almost. Now, the first line in here under course project overview, please, I beg you, pay close attention to this. I have had so many students to not do this. This is corrections. This is not a law enforcement course. This is not about police. This is not about courts. This is about corrections. Corrections. Correcting someone who has been found guilty or pled guilty. The system of what it consists of 4 components, which I've talked about earlier. And here they are. Probation, parole, jail, or prison. That's it. Probation, parole, jail, or prison. Probation, parole, jail, or prison. Now, what you're supposed to do, excuse me, in a summary is basically for week 2, you're going to contact a staff person of an agency. You should be getting on that. Don't wait till week 2. And you're going to contact that person or agency, and you're going to complete the requirements as is laid out in the module for week 2. Then you're going to schedule an in-person interview. Now, I want to tell you right now that that's not going to be until week 7 that you actually have to do it. But you should schedule it and get it set up. Now, sometimes people have delays, so you don't wait till the last minute. That's been the problem. And then what this does is it helps you to learn firsthand about the field, okay? You can ask, can you tour the facility or agency? However, we are aware that due to security and data privacy issues, some agencies may not be able to allow more than an interview, which is okay. An in-person interview is optimal, but right now, don't call me and say, they wouldn't let me in, but I had to do a telephone interview. That's fine. And it says with prior instructor approval. I'm giving it to you right now, so don't ask me, will you approve it? I'm doing it right now. Everybody, don't call me, don't email me, don't text me. Read and listen to the open house. You will have some assigned interview questions, which I'm going to show you in a few minutes. People will be asking me, where do I find the interview questions? I'm going to show you right now. I'm telling you, I guarantee you, I think there's 25 or 30 students in this class. Somebody or some people are going to do it. It is very important because I'm trying not to do extra work, and I'm trying not to be funny to anybody, but I'm taking the time to go over this. And you know, I apologize to those of you who are getting it right away, but my experience of teaching, I think this is about the 6th quarter, which means I've taught it for quite a while, maybe even longer, at least for a few years. So there's a quarter in each year. So that means that I've probably taught it, gosh, maybe 16 times. Anyway, I've taught it a long time. You will also explore interest to you. You'll see why I say that in a few minutes. In addition to your interview, you'll conduct research. Did you hear me say that? Research into the background of your agency and possible solutions to the challenges identified from your interview or before. So now, let's talk about how the skills, transferable skills. So in communication, while working on this project, you're going to display your competency in writing, in reading, and oral communication. You can see how that works in doing this assignment. So professionally, remember I said that, and use of grammar, effective sentence structure, punctuation, spelling in all your reports, not just the final report. And then it says here there are many resources available to help with this. And I already told you about those resources. And the resources tab, again, they refer you. Dealing with diversity and teamwork. Through your interview questions, which you'll get in a few minutes, you will develop a better understanding of working together or collaboratively with people of diverse backgrounds and perspectives. So you're dealing with diversity and teamwork. So now let me give you the due dates. Your final project is due week 9. So notice what it says here. You see week 1, which is today, it's not darkened because there's no assignment. But what we're doing is what we're doing now. So for week 2, look at this. Select the agency and contact person. I'm not going to show you week 2, but it tells you what's in week 2 when you get there for the assignment, what you need. The agency and contact person. And in the contact person, it tells you to provide information, which people have lost points because they just provide the agency and the contact person, but they didn't supply the details that the rubric says and or the module. So this is just telling you what the topic is. Now, this is what I would tell you. As you build your paper up, you're going to be able to use what you complete each week, each of the weeks for the assignment for your final, along with adding whatever else they ask for. So in week 4, agency overview and background. You're going to find that through a lot of it, through the websites, through research and things like that, not necessarily through the interview. Not necessarily through the interview. And you're going to be required to have citations and references. You don't really have to worry about that for this week, the week 2. But week 4, you do. Agency overview and background. So there are 4 parts, actually 4 parts to this assignment. Week 2, week 4, and then week 7, you do an interview. I will tell you this right now just for your information. Week 7 interview. You know how you hear me talk about APA citations in the body and references at the end? The interview report does not require references. Did you hear me now? It requires using the questions and providing detailed answers with citations in the body. And when you do an interview, you're going to find yourself in a situation where you're going to use as citations person that you're interviewing and the details of that. Then your final report is due week 9. So that's it. So this is a small report assignment. This is a medium. This is not really that tedious. Now, here are the requirements. Going to week 7. This is for week 7. Interview overview. Here are the required questions. There's 5 of them. 5 of them. These are the questions. Do not ask me where do I find the questions, because I'm telling you, they're right here. These are the 5 questions and 3 questions of your choice. So how many questions should there be? A minimum of 8. I'm sorry, that's 8. 3 and 5 is 8. There you go. 8. There should be 8 questions. You can go more beyond that, but a minimum of 8, and I'm going to check to see if you actually are using the proper questions. Then, and don't just give me your short answers, you know. So that's for week 7, right here. Then this is for week 4. It says research into the selected agency that you selected for week 2, week 4. It says research, and you're going to provide these issues. Again, there's more details within the module itself. You'll get a lot of this from their website and other sources. All right, so you're going to deal with each of these issues. All right, so now getting to the ethics and professional responsibility. As a professional, you're expected to apply ethical and professional principles of conduct when you, as you are employed as part of your review of the agency you chose. Research includes the organization's mission statement. There it is right there. It says, very important, students have lost points because they didn't do that. So that goes to that 4th week, okay? And then digital fluency, it tells you again, as you research and so forth, it explains the importance of digital fluency to be able to develop these skills, APA and guidelines, in-text citation, except, as I told you, for week 7, you don't have to worry about references, just in-text citations. Information literacy, again, it tells you what not to use, and we already talked about Wikipedia. Now, each assignment leading up to the final assignment, week 9, is evaluated independently. That's because there's a rubric for each one. But, and I've already told you, the specific grading criteria is in the module for each week, in the rubric and in the module, okay? And you know what the due date will be. And then if you have any other questions, type that in and put it in the general course questions, and you'll be able to have that there. And that's the course project. So I've gone all over to tell you what topics, what the 4 topics are. Don't try to do 2. I have had students try to do probation and parole, jail and prison. Don't do that, because they're two different things. And so dealing with the whole overall corrections, there are 2 separate things, and we'll be discussing that during the course of our 11 weeks in terms of discussing them. All right. And then this again talks about tutoring there. And that's it, guys. That is it for the details of the project, as clear as I can break it down to you. I can't make it any more clear than that. So you got to make sure that you do that. What messes people up a lot of times is they'll contact me and says, I've reached out to so-and-so, and they didn't contact me back. You got to be on top of that kind of thing. You got to email them. You got to write them. You may have to call them. The bottom line is try to get these done. I've had students that get all the way down to week 9 and say, I haven't been able to select an agency. That's the first thing. That's the easiest thing. My contact person, and by the way, sometimes contact person changes during the course because something happens. That's okay, as long as you're not jumping all over the place. Okay? Don't ask me, can you do a social service agency? I just already told you, jail, prison, probation, or parole. That is it. No more, no less. One of them. Okay? So that's it for the project. And so now I'm going to, at this point, leave this and go into the classroom, because we're at the end almost, but it's going to take me more than this. So bear with me while I tell you this. I'm going to try to do this in the next 20 to 25 minutes at the most, share this with you. Remember when I told you that the motto was adversity is a springboard to success? I'm telling you why I can say that, so that you can understand, because I know people sometimes without hearing this, they won't understand I can relate to challenges and trials. And I'll tell you it in a story form. When yours truly was 7 years old, my dad was murdered in front of my face. Now, I have a photographic memory, which means I won't forget it. But my dad was murdered by a man who turned out, he was a roomer in the house. And it turns out that the reason it happened, I found out years later, is that my mother and he had an affair, and my father confronted him. The man took out a knife and stabbed my dad in the forehead in front of a 7-year-old boy, who's yours truly, and 5 younger girls. We were all in one bedroom. And then the man ran out. My dad, I still have the picture of the blood pouring out of his head, the knife in his head, and the guy took off. The police came, took my dad's body out of the room. I never forget the look on his face as they carried him past me in that bed. And shortly after that, a few days later, the man showed back up at the house. Now that puzzled me, but I found out what happened is that the case was never prosecuted. The investigation determined that my father was the aggressor because the witness, adult witness who was in there, who actually turned on the lights in the room where all this happened, was my mother. And she loved this man. So she went to bat and said that my father was the aggressor, which was not the case. But they didn't call us. They didn't call my younger sisters, and they didn't call me. I would have been able to tell them, but they wouldn't do it. And so the man didn't go to jail. He proceeded then to move out of the room that he was staying in the house, and then openly take the place in the bed where my dad was sleeping next to my mother. He used to beat my mother profusely on a regular basis. Thus, I grew up in the house where domestic violence took place frequently. And as a result of that, I saw my mother's face disfigured. But you know what would happen, good people? From 57 to 62, in that house on the west side of Chicago, the police came so many times that I lost count. And my mother would go back and get the guy and bring him back home. And it was that I grew under. In the meantime, my mother had one more child by this man, and it was a girl. So then the area got real bad. It changed from a Jewish community into a really bad area. There were gangs. The Vice Lords and Cobras were the two gangs. Something unusual happened, though. The gangs knew about what happened in my household and family, and they made an agreement, listen to me, gangs cooperating, that I would not be recruited because I was the sole surviving heir male of my family. And they respected that, and they would always tell me when something was going down to get away from over there. Well, my mom decided even after that still she would leave the area, and we moved away from our own house, that two-flat that my mom owned, and we moved to Gary, Indiana, in a nice community of Gary called Terrytown, and west side of Gary, and we had a single-family house that we moved in. So my mom and the man who killed my dad and her and my 6 sisters. And while we were living there, a 7th sister was born in 62, and March of 62, March 26th of 62 to be exact. And she was the baby. So we moved into Gary, and an aunt came to stay with us for a while, and from Michigan. And the beatings and all that stopped because my aunt, she was known to carry a gun, and she didn't tolerate anything. And so he was pretty cool from that point. But then in early May of 1963, she left and went back home to be with her husband in Michigan. As soon as she left, things got bad again. I'll never forget Memorial Day of 1963, which was May 30th. My mother had a barbecue restaurant with a cousin in downtown Gary, and she told me, "Richard, you're in charge," which I often was in charge of the house. She says, "I'm going to go to the restaurant, and you take care of things, make sure everything's cleaned up nice." So I did. I obeyed her. And don't let anybody in the house. I said, okay, I understand that. So we all went to bed that night, and my mom left. I cleaned up the kitchen, did everything I needed to do. But I didn't realize that in the oven there was some barbecue that was in a container, one of those big pans. and it was cooked, so it wasn't a problem. So anyway, we went to bed. I was awakened just before dawn by the smell of smoke in the house, and I got up and did an investigation. Went in the kitchen and realized that that oven was on. Now, none of us had turned it on, and I began to open the door. When I looked out the door, I saw the car pull away that my mother had, that this man by the name of Scott, Webster Scott, was in with her. And so when the car pulled away, I opened up and let the smoke out. So we went on about our day. I didn't think nothing of it. I looked in the room. My mother's bed hadn't been slept in, but that wasn't unusual because she did that frequently because she was always gone doing something. So I was in charge of the household and the family. So it came about during the day, everybody was up, all 7 of my sisters, and we were in the living room. I remember watching TV, and all of a sudden, these 2 gentlemen showed up, and you know, they were at the door, and I answered, and they identified themselves as police officers. And I said, "You can't come in." They said, "Well, we need to come in and talk to you." And when I saw their badges, and I opened the door. When they came in, they announced that my mother had been found dead in Chicago, bled to death. I started yelling, "Scott, Scott, Scott!" And before I knew it, I was just out of it. I was just, and then I stopped to catch myself because I saw my sisters were all responding and acting and looking. And then the baby, she was on the blanket on the floor. We had been playing. And that was what happened. So my aunt, one of my aunts came, not the one from Michigan, another aunt, her sister, came and got us. She says, "You're going to come with me." And she brought us back to Chicago in the South Side in an area called Chatham, and we stayed at her house. And she let us know, "You're going to earn your keep here." And she turned us into slaves in her house. And she said, "We're working to try to determine how you are going to be placed." And basically, what she was saying, I discovered, is that they were going to split us up. That my mother wouldn't have wanted. So my other aunt came, remember the one from Michigan? She came and she said, "No, I'm not splitting these kids up. I'm going to take them." My husband and I, and she had a house built in 63. I'm sorry, 64. So, by the way, let me tell you how bad it was. When my mother was killed and they had her wake, I went and I saw her body at the wake, and I couldn't take it. I got real sick. I didn't even go to the funeral. I didn't go to the burial. I couldn't do it. So it was that bad a thing on me. And so anyway, my aunt came and took us to this area called Maple Park, further south in Chicago, had a new house built, moved us in. I had my own room for the second time. I did have my own room in Gary, so I had my own bedroom again. My sisters shared the room. They split it up because it was a 4-bedroom house. And so actually it was a 5, but 4 were upstairs. So I had a room, my aunt and uncle had a room, and the girls split up between the 2 rooms that were upstairs. Anyway, we lived in that house in 64, and it was brought to my attention in 1964 that when I started 8th grade in the fall of 64, we had moved in June of 64, that Scott had pled guilty. And they told me that he was going to receive 10 years. But they said 10 and mean 5. And they further said that if he behaved himself, he could potentially serve 3.5 years. And ultimately, that's what happened. So for 3.5 years, this man is what he got for killing 2 people, depriving these children of their parents. That's pretty problematic with what I went through on the road to get to that point. And so I was troubled, and when I get troubled, I started to ask questions, and I was told that that's just the way it is. And then finally somebody said, well, that's, the legal system. I said, the legal system? Yeah, criminal law, criminal justice, and all that. I didn't know what they were talking about. I'm only 14 years old at this time. So I said, lawyers? They said, yeah. So I went to school to the library, and the librarian told me that they had a book that was about lawyers or attorneys, and I took that book, checked it out, took it home, and read it cover to cover overnight. And guys, anybody I met the next day after that, from that day forward, and I don't remember the exact date in '64, but it was in '64, sometime after Labor Day, that I'd introduced myself as, my name is Richard Wright, and I'm going to be a lawyer. As soon as I said that, and I started telling everybody, the aunt that we lived with at first, that brought us to her house, that didn't want us there, was going to split us up, she immediately said to me, son, I understand what you want to do, but you don't have what it takes. So basically she told me I couldn't do it. And so guys, what happened is that I began living with my aunt and uncle. Now I found out that my aunt and uncle wanted to adopt all of the kids. I did not want to be adopted because of the fact that I wanted to carry on my dad's name, and I was the only one, 7 girls and me, and I was the oldest. So what ended up happening is that without my knowledge, I didn't know this, I went through from probably 15 years old to I was 34 years old, not knowing, listen to me, that I had been illegally adopted by this aunt. But it was bad. I never used that name. I kept Richard Wright, not the name that was my aunt's husband's name. He didn't like me because I didn't want to use his name, but I told him it wasn't in disrespect. It was because I was carrying on my dad's name, and he didn't respect me in that. And we didn't get along at all. So I used to spend a lot of time out of the house. I would spend a lot of time at the neighborhood church, going to youth group, even helping clean up the church. I went to a lot of my friends' houses and got to know their parents real well. And so I would find out later that the man who was my uncle living in that house actually molested my sisters, several of them, not all of them, but several of them. And it was bad. It was bad, obviously. And my aunt and uncle would constantly get into it. They would even pull guns on each other, and kids were in the house. Oh, it was some crazy stuff, guys. There was no DCFS intervention. Yeah, there was DCFS, but it wasn't, anyway, it was bad. It was bad. So came to a point where I got tired of it, so I went out and found somebody that I liked. I heard them on the radio, and I liked their voice, and I asked them, would they be my mother? Well, my aunt, laughed and told the lady, butt out, and so the lady backed off. But my aunt finally said she could be my friend. The lady could be my friend. She was only 14 years older than me, so she was 28 and I was 14. So we began to be friends, and she introduced me to radio because she was on radio. That's why I heard her, and I used to spend time with her. So I did all kinds of things to stay away from home. So moving right along, I went through high school, and it was near time to graduate, and I decided that what I was going to do was I was going to pursue my law, and the way I was going to do it was I was going to get a job with the FBI and go to school, move to Washington, and go to school and earn an under bachelor's and then go to law school. Well, as it turned out, I applied to the FBI. The FBI turned me down, background check and all. I would find out years and years later the reason I was turned down is because there was a racist, J. Edgar Hoover, was declining the application of minorities and women. So that went that plan out the window. So next thing that happened to me is that the church that I was active in, because I was an active youth, came to my aunt and uncle and told them that they had a program that they could put me in that would pay all of my education expenses. They wouldn't even have to give me a dime or anything. All they had to do was sign. My uncle said no, because he doesn't want to take my name. He doesn't respect me, and I'm doing it. So he wasn't right. He wasn't right. So I went through, and I was very, nice about it. I said, okay, I'm still going to get what I go after. And they laughed and thought it was funny. And then in school, there were counselors that were telling me that I didn't fit the criteria to become a lawyer. And so I don't believe what people tell me. I believe what I know I can do. So I've always been a confident young man, but not arrogant or cocky. And so anyway, you'll see what happens later down the road with that. And so anyway, I found myself where I announced that what I'm going to do is I'm going to move out, because I'll be turning 19 when I graduate in 1969, because my birthday is in May and we graduated in June of 69. So my aunt decided she was going to move out of that house because she was chasing this man, because he was doing all kind of crazy stuff with other women as well. So I ended up talking to my friends about things. I said, I don't know what I'm going to do. And one of my friends' mom and dad said, Richard, you're a good kid. We know you from the church. You can come stay with us. And I said, well, but I need a job because I'm going to go to school at night at a junior college. So I ended up registering in a junior college. And then the family I was staying with, the mother had a close friend who was a secretary in a big law firm in downtown Chicago. She managed to get me a job. And I started in a mailroom. When I got to the law firm, I would dress professionally. Most of the guys in the mailroom did not dress that way, but that's how I did. And so the working in the mailroom, I would take the mail, pick up the lunches and stuff like that. Whenever I interacted with the lawyers, I would introduce myself and let them know that I was going to become a lawyer. So I'm taking classes at night. Then I decided it got even tougher. Living with this family, I decided, oh, by the way, I had no car. I was studying on the L train, the buses. I had to take 2 buses and 1 L train to get to work. I had to be at work at 8:30. I had to be in class at 4:30. I got off of work at 4 o'clock. I had to carry books, and these were big books, big textbooks at that time. And so I did that. In the meantime, I decided to get married to the young lady that I had been dating in high school, and we got married. And then I moved away from my friend's house. I moved for a little while with my mother-in-law for my first marriage. And while living there, I quickly decided I got to have my own place. So I did. I found a little small place for my wife and I, and we moved in. We just had a mattress, and we didn't even have a kitchen table. It had stove and refrigerator in the place, but it was very small. Anyway, we ended up living in there. Well, here comes child number 1 in 71, child number 2 in 72, and both were girls. And in the meantime, my wife at that time was going to school as well. She was studying to be a teacher. And so I was at the junior college level. I became active in student government. I found time for that, and became the vice president of the evening student government. But the main thing that I want you to know is, with all of this stuff that was going on around me, I maintained a B+ average and stayed on the honor roll and the dean's list. So it was because I had a challenge. So then I did that until 1972. I transferred to a 4-year institution called Roosevelt University, where when I was at Roosevelt University, I applied for a degree in liberal arts and political science, minoring in accounting. And so I continued to excel there. I was active in what they call the Black Business Advisory Group, which I worked with a lot of business students in this program. And I did career days, speaking at grammar schools and high schools as well. I found all this while I was still working full time, raising these two kids, and still didn't have a car. And then it came time around 73, 74 for me to make a decision. I already knew what law school I wanted to go to, but to take the LSAT, and I did. I didn't do as well, but I said I was going to take it again, and then it was told to me, nah, don't worry about it. I didn't really do it. And then there were people that told me, see, I told you you didn't fit that, including that aunt I told you. So anyway, no one at the school ever told me that in the college level because they saw how I was operating. So at any rate, it came time for me to apply, and I said, I'm going to Northwestern. And people thought it was funny because they said you should apply to at least 3 schools. I said, no, I'm applying to the one I'm going to. And I applied to Northwestern University School of Law. Now, when you applied, you get a 6-page application. But my package was very, very thick that I submitted. And in that package, I had writing samples. I also wrote a narrative about what I went through in more detail than I shared with you from my childhood. And I submitted that package and asked one of the lawyers if he could deliver it for me when he went over there to teach as an adjunct professor. He said he would. He took it there. Sometime after that, about a week or two, I get a phone call from Northwestern that I was paged while I was in the library. Oh, by the way, by this time, I had moved from a messenger to a file clerk to a law librarian to then what they call a paralegal today because they found out I knew how to do research. I taught myself. So with all of that happening, I was in the library and I got paged to come to the to answer a phone call. It was a law school calling, and they wanted to talk to me and explain to me that they don't do interviews because they had that in their materials. I wasn't asking for an interview. They said, but they were curious about this person who submitted this package, and would I be willing to come to the campus? So I told my bosses. They said, sure, you can take time off. We're not going to dock you. Go. So I went to the law school, and I sat and met with 4 people, 3 males and 1 female. And I sat in a room, and they fired questions, and I answered those questions. They asked me questions about my package and about the things that I went through, and I started explaining to them. Because of my photographic memory, I was able to recall a lot of details. And they said, you're an amazing individual, young man. They said, we're going to adjourn for a few minutes, and then we'll come back and talk to you. It seemed like an eternity that they adjourned, but I think it was only about a half an hour. But anyway, they came back, and when they came back, they said, one of them said, young man, we really, really, really like what we read here. They said, but we don't make decisions like this. But we will tell you this. We like what we read, and we're going to be sending you some correspondence in the next few weeks that I think that you'll probably be interested in receiving. Well, that was their way of telling me in an informal way that I received 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, a letter inviting me to attend Northwestern University School of Law. I was so excited. I had gotten into the school I wanted to go to. And so then what happened is that I found myself where I could do things. And so the law firm, I told them there was a program that I could go through and complete and get money to help me with law school. And they gave me time to do that. And I spent 6 weeks in Wisconsin, at University of Wisconsin, in a summer program called CLEO. And So I was on my way, got accepted, started law school, and when I was starting in that August of '75, by the way, I had graduated in June of '75 from Roosevelt University with honors, with all kinds of awards. I was written up in the newspaper. I was sent down to Springfield, and I was inducted into what they call the Lincoln Academy, where my name was enshrined in Springfield in the Hall of Fame. The governor gave me a medal and a certificate. So I was on my way. So I got to the law school. My ex-wife, now I call her that, she was my wife at the time. She began teaching because I was told that as a first-year law student, Northwestern, of course, didn't have night classes, but that they said that I could not work while attending classes. So I did not work. And so I started classes. And it was coming along. Things were tight, but it was coming along. So then all of a sudden, the teachers from Chicago Public Schools did something they hadn't done. They went on strike. Well, there went our income. And money started running, getting lower and lower. It got so bad that we couldn't pay the electric bill, and I continued to have to study. I studied by candlelight. During the day I was at school, but in the evening I would study by candlelight and flashlight. We took the kids and sent them to my wife's mother's house, which wasn't too far from where we were living, in the apartment we were living in. I worked out something with the landlord, and so we were able to stay in there. And so we ate like canned goods. It was something. We didn't have a refrigerator that we could use in there because we didn't have any electricity. And so anyway, we went through that. And it got really tough on me. So I went to one of my professors, Professor Joyce Hughes, and I said to her, Professor Hughes, I think I'm going to have to take a leave from the school because things are really tough. She said, before you do that, would you meet me at my office after class? She was one of my instructors. So she took me in the office. I went to the office, and she opened the door, invited me in. She said, have a seat. And then she stood in front of the door. And she says, there's only one way out of here other than the window. And it's through this door. And I'm not moving from this door until you tell me that you're going to stick it out. And we can work this through. I'm going to be a support to you. I'm going to help you. I don't have any money, but I'll direct you to some resources or things that can help you. So she says, what's the deal? Is it going to be or not? Because otherwise we're just camping out here. She was serious. And I said, okay. I took her up on it. So I did. That was in '75. 3 years later, I graduated from the law school with a law degree. Now, while I was in law school, one of my classmates, a young man who was in the class of '77 in front of me, his dad was a distinguished criminal defense lawyer. He was on the scale of Johnny Cochran, who was O.J.'s lawyer. And in fact, later on, he introduced me to Johnny Cochran, and I had some training under Johnny Cochran. But anyway, this particular attorney was very well respected as a criminal defense lawyer. And his son invited about 5 or 6 of us to come to his house on the south side on weekends, and we would go. And his dad would sit down, and he would drill us. And then his wife, my friend's mom, would feed us. Well, I remember one occasion where everybody left, and it was just me there with him, his wife, and my classmate. And I said, I need to talk to you about something that you need to know about me. And I told him my story. And he sat there and he looked at me and he says, wow. He says, you need closure. And so I think this was in my second semester or either my second year. But at any rate, he said, you need closure. And so he took me over to the criminal court building, took me to the basement, and they pulled the files out and gave me copies of the records, which I have to this day. And so I understood. He also says, I'm going to give you some advice. He says, based on everything that I see about you, you might want to prosecute. I said, well, not really, because there's some problems here. I said, I learned when I was in college about the injustices in the criminal justice system and so forth. And so he said, okay, the way you're going to learn the criminal justice system is you be a defense lawyer. And so I said, I think I can do that. So anyway, during the summers while I was at the law firm, I would go back and work at the corporate law firm. But they had some criminal cases, but not a lot. I used to go to jails and prisons and stuff like that. When I was a paralegal law clerk, I used to go as well. And I had helped them with writing because I wrote briefs and memos before I went to law school. So anyway, came to the time for me to graduate. The commencement speaker was this same gentleman. Now, by this time, he had become a judge. And he came to, he was at the graduation. After graduation was over, I was so happy. The person who I had asked to be my mother, she was there. She was not legally my mother, but she was still my friend in my life. And anyway, just being ahead about her, in 1984, when I did find out, finally when I went to get a birth certificate and I couldn't find one under Richard Wright, I found out that it was under Collins, which was my aunt's name. She had passed away at that time, my aunt, and the one who, from Michigan, and it was just her husband, and he wouldn't give me any information. So I found out at that time they had illegally adopted me. So I ended up being able to get that fixed because the lady who had became my friend, she volunteered. She says, "You're 34." She said, "What can we do?" And I told her what the law was, and she agreed, and she legally adopted me, and my name was corrected on the record, and she is now on my birth certificate as my mother. Remember I told you, she's only 14 years older than me. So the birth certificate says that she was 13 or 14 when I was born, and we joke about that. So anyway, back to the law school graduation, which was some years before that, 78. The Judge Pincham, who was the person I was talking about, the lawyer judge, he was a commencement speaker. And my aunt, remember the aunt way back that I told you that told me I couldn't do it? Well, I found out that her daughter was not accepted into Northwestern and did become a lawyer but went to another school. Well, at any rate, she came because the first invitation that I sent was to her, and then I invited others. She came, and that was the first time, guys, that she really owned me. She owned up to me and started bragging about me being her nephew. Well, Judge Pincham said to me, "That's your aunt?" He said, "I've been knowing her for years." He said, "I'm sorry to say this, Richard, but she's not right. She's not right. She's just not right." And so he didn't know. I said, well, she was one of the ones that told me I couldn't be a lawyer. So he took me over to her, and he said to my aunt, she said, your nephew is a fantastic young man. He's going to go places. She said, "Oh, I know. I always tell him that." And I stood there like, yeah, right, So anyway, it was a festive occasion, so I didn't, rain on the situation. I hugged and thanked again my professor, Joyce Hughes, who she and I are friends to this day. Even she's still at the law school teaching. And so anyway, I went on with my life. I graduated, went back to the law firm. And when I went to the law firm, I told them that I was going to not stay long. So from 78 to 80, I worked there at the law firm, and then I announced I was leaving to start working in criminal law more. So I ended up joining some attorneys. I didn't like their ethics, so I started my own practice, Richard H. Wright and Associates. I started doing what I had been taught by the lady on radio about how to use communication in radio, because I had been in radio studios and television studios for quite a bit of my time while I was in high school, college, law school, all of that stuff. So she was on WGN-TV. Her name was Mary D. And some people know her, and you can Google it, Merridee. Well, she wrote a book about her life and included me in there. So anyway, what I'm going to tell you is that I started my own practice and then came up with a radio show called Know Your Rights with a W. And so WRIGHTS. My phone number was 974-4487, which spelled WRIGHTS. So here's what happened. I told you we were going a little longer. I'm just about done. But I ended up finding myself representing defendants, doing very well, and clients were coming. And then backing up, I went 91 and 93 to seminary and became a minister. So I continued practicing law. In the meantime, people, my first wife and I, we had our third child, which she came about in 1978 in October after law school. And so then after that, we started growing further and further apart. We ended up divorcing in 87, and then I went my way, raised my kids, and then after that, I found a young lady, I got married, and then that young lady's mother, my second marriage, became village president or mayor of a South suburban community. It was called Ford Heights. Pretty tough place. So she asked me if I'd be her village attorney. I was still having my law practice in Chicago. I had two offices, one downtown and one on the south side. And so anyway, I ended up taking the job as village attorney. Then I said, I need to carry a gun. She said, no, you can't legally unless you're a police officer. So I became a part-time police officer, went through the training in the academy, and then I became involved with drug raids, working with the law enforcement people, dealing with traffic stops. I was the village prosecutor. And then corruption was discovered, well, it was already going on in the police department, and the chief had to step down, and another chief came in, and he recruited me to be his internal affairs investigator, and I did that. So I did that from 89 to 93 while married to my second wife. In the meantime, in 1990, my fourth child comes about, that's a daughter, and then I would find out in 93, around 93, that and I joined her church, by the way, and I found out, excuse me, that the pastor and my wife had been carrying on. Now, you know what I went through. My choice was, nope, I'm not going through this. And so I went and we got a divorce. And so in 93, late 93, I was very depressed about the situation, and I went to a Christian bookstore, and I met a young lady that was waiting on me there, and we became friends. And here's how we became friends. She saw this robe. I saw this robe I wanted to try on, and I tried this minister's robe on. She says, you look good in it. Well, we became friends after that. I got divorced, and we went on, got married July 28, 1994. This year we will be celebrating 25 years. So in the meantime, between that, one son came about, my first boy, who will be 25. His name is Richard Jr., and you saw him if you look at those pictures in the student lounge. And so came about, you know, I decided I was going to stop practicing and concentrate on ministry. And so in about 93, 94, I decided to slow down, and then finally in 2000, I completely retired from practicing law. I was 50 years old to concentrate on ministry. So my wife and I, my third wife, which is the current wife that I have now, we ended up living with her mother for a while. I had a house when I was married to my second, but she didn't want to live in it, so I got rid of it. And then we moved in an apartment, and then we had a house built in 1999. And then came then came 2000. There came a daughter, and then in 2001 there came a son, and then in 2008 there came another daughter. So I have a 10-year-old who will be 11 on April 15th. So here I am, the father of 8 kids, 11 grandkids, and I ended up finding myself working in special education, teaching special ed kids, especially behavioral disorder kids, running a janitorial company for a company called Service Merchandise, and then when they went out of business, I started doing closings for a title company. And then in 2011, as I conclude here, someone approached me about a job and said, you know, there's a school called Rasmussen College. They're looking for a teacher to teach business law. And I said, I've never heard of it. So I did research, and I discovered, okay. And I took the job to teach at the Romeoville campus in Romeoville, Illinois. I was hired in October 2011. And when I started there, it was residentially. So they told me, they said, you'll be teaching this one class. So I told them, I says, I'd like to do criminal justice because, and I told them I'm a criminal defense attorney person. I've done criminal work. I've been a police officer and all the different things I told you. So the dean moved me into criminal justice, where I started continuing to teach a few classes. Then finally in 2014, there came an opening for a full-time position for the state program coordinator, which held me to be responsible for the criminal justice program in Illinois, which consists of 4 campuses. Some of you are from them. Romeoville, which is my home campus now, Mokina Tinley Park, which is another campus, Aurora, and Rockford. And so I used to travel between those campuses and my full-time job. And then finally, they changed my position. I was teaching 3 classes at that time and did away with the state program coordinator, and I added 2 more classes. And since that time, I've been teaching 5 classes. They brought it to my attention in 2012 that the program was going online, and I had to learn those systems. So here comes another challenge. I am up to every challenge. So I took and began teaching that. I started out as an associate professor, then an assistant professor, and now I am Professor Dr. Richard Wright. And so, through the years, I have stressed to each of you the professionalism and the importance, how I want you to become 3 things: educated, ethical, and professional criminal justice individuals. And I don't want people to be let down like I was. I want you to be good at what you do. Some students have taken me up, and I'm working with one right now, but I work with a couple who went on and decided to become lawyers. And so I say this to you, that's who you have teaching you, and I hope that you will understand what adversity as a springboard to success means, and that for the next 11 weeks, I'm going to be here, be a support to you, to help you. And so it's really late. It's 10:40, and again, you know, I don't like to go that long, but I want you to understand, because the rest of the lectures will be an hour or less. So I'm going to say good night. Thank you for attending. You know who I'm talking to. And I'm going to end this meeting. If you have any questions, you can email me, text me. You know the rules I started out talking about. So I'm going to say good night, and hope to see you next week at on the 10th at 8:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. So have a good evening. Get those assignments completed. Good night.